Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. It started with the sound of keys. Not the jingle, the drop. Cold metal hitting our marble countertop at exactly 1:19 a.m. That sound, I swear, still echoes in my ears. No, I'm home. No explanation. Just the clatter of keys. Then heels kicked off like nothing mattered. And the smell, not sweat or wine. Something else. A new perfume. Like honey mixed with lies. I stood in the dark hallway, lights off, pretending to scroll through my phone. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and didn't care. She walked straight past, humming. After a work dinner. That was the night I knew. Not suspected. Not wondered. Knew. I didn't need tears. I didn't need lipstick stains or another man's shirt in the laundry. I needed exactly what I had. One sound, one moment, and one recording device that had captured more than I was ever ready to hear. But let's rewind a bit. Not to introduce myself, I don't matter. She used to say I was a little too soft for my own good. Maybe I am. I was the kind of husband who ironed her blouses while she was in the shower, who reminded her to take her vitamins, who believed that supporting her career would one day be worth it. Spoiler, it wasn't. This all started the night before, when she left at 6:41 p.m. with her laptop bag, red lipstick, and a silk blouse I'd never seen before. She said it was a client dinner. Could run late, she added, without making eye contact. I said nothing, but I noticed everything. Because hours earlier, that very morning, I'd stitched a tiny voice recorder inside the lining of her bag. It wasn't some jealous impulse. I tried talking. I tried connecting. But her phone had more of her attention than I did. She laughed at her screen more than at my jokes. She started calling me dude by accident. She stopped asking if I was okay. And when I looked into her eyes during breakfast, I saw a stranger. So I recorded her. And that night, while she was out working, I sat alone in our apartment with the lights dimmed, playing the same Spotify playlist we used to cook to on Fridays. I don't know why. Maybe to pretend things hadn't rotted from the inside out. At 2:11 a.m., after she'd passed out in bed, dress crumpled on the floor, phone buzzing with a message she never checked, I opened the file. It started with ambient noise, clinking glasses, a loud restaurant. Then her voice. She was laughing, flirtatious in a way I hadn't heard in years. Then a man spoke. He called her March. She called him Liam. They weren't talking about marketing campaigns or branding targets. They were whispering things. Soft. Close. Secret. Then I heard her say, if I didn't go home tonight, he wouldn't even notice. The recording didn't get violent. It didn't need to. It broke me with calmness. With how ordinary it all sounded. Like this wasn't new. Like this had been happening long before I ever suspected. I paused the audio. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just sat in that chair, staring at the blinking cursor on my laptop, the file still open, halfway played, and realized she had already left me. Quietly, carefully, long before her body ever walked out the door. And I had the proof. Now all I had to do was figure out what I was going to do with it. I didn't sleep that night. Not a second. She lay next to me, breathing softly, her hand grazing my side like we were still something real. I stared at the ceiling, replaying that single sentence over and over in my head. If I didn't go home tonight, he wouldn't even notice. She said it like a joke, but it didn't sound like one. It sounded like something rehearsed, like something she'd said before, maybe to herself in the mirror, maybe to him on nights I thought she was stuck in traffic. I kept hearing her laugh in the recording. It wasn't the kind of laugh she gave me anymore. Hers with him was light, playful, effortless. With me, it had turned hollow, the kind people give out of obligation, not joy. And what broke me most was how easy it was for her. She wasn't hesitant. She wasn't conflicted. She was comfortable. By morning, I made my decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I wanted to know how far it went, how deep the deception ran. If I'd been living a lie, I wanted the full novel, not just the last chapter. I needed every word, every dirty, quiet truth. So I did something I never imagined myself doing. I acted like everything was normal. I made coffee. I buttered her toast. I even kissed her forehead like I used to. She barely looked up from her phone. It was like she'd already turned the page and left me behind. Over the next few days, I recorded everything. Her phone calls, her video meetings, the background of her Zoom calls when she thought I wasn't around. I told myself I was gathering facts. But deep down, I think I was just torturing myself. Each time I hit play, I braced for something worse. And each time, it delivered. Snippets of conversations with someone named Liam. Phrases like, he still doesn't know. Or no, I haven't decided yet. Once, she even said, he's too nice, you know? It's like, there's no fire. That part made me laugh. Bitterly. Because I'd spent the last 7 years building a life around her comfort. Around not being the kind of man who raised his voice or made demands. And somehow, that had become the reason I was invisible. Then came the Friday night that changed everything. She said she had another client dinner. Same bag, same dress, same lipstick. This time, I slipped a second recorder into the inner zipper of her coat, a backup just in case. She left without even asking if I had dinner plans. As soon as the door shut, I sat on the floor. I didn't cry. I didn't even move. I just stared at the door like it might open again. But it didn't. She didn't come home until 2:34 a.m. I didn't say a word. She walked in, tossed her shoes, and went straight to bed. The next morning, I waited until she left for yoga, then downloaded the new audio files. And that's when I heard it. The sound that would turn everything from suspicion into proof. Not whispers. Not giggles. A hotel room door. Her voice. And a moan that didn't belong in my marriage. I sat in front of my laptop, headphones pressing into my ears like a vice, heart thudding so loudly it nearly drowned out the audio. But then I heard it again, unmistakable. The soft thump of a hotel room door closing, a short pause, then her voice saying something muffled, casual, intimate. And then a man laughing, deep and comfortable, like this wasn't the first time. Not even close. I paused the audio and stared at my reflection in the black screen. I looked like a ghost in my own home. Pale, sunken, eyes hollowed from nights without sleep and the kind of betrayal that doesn't just hit your chest. It eats it from the inside. I hit play again. They joked about me. That was the worst part. About how clueless I was. How I probably spent my nights alphabetizing my record collection or making comfort meals to distract myself from being ignored. The way she said my name, Nolan, with that half-laugh, half-pity tone. I'll never forget it. I used to think love died in silence, in drifting apart, but now I know it can be killed by mockery. By hearing the woman you built a life with talk about you like you're an inconvenience, not a partner. Still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. I know, it sounds pathetic. Weak. But the truth is, I wanted her to look me in the eye and lie one more time. I wanted her to feed me another excuse just so I could finally feel justified in what I was about to do. I wasn't planning revenge. I wasn't even angry, really. Just hollow. Like the last pieces of myself were waiting to fall apart. That Sunday morning, as she made coffee like nothing had happened, I asked, "So, how was the dinner?" She didn't even flinch. Said it was long. Tedious. That she didn't stay long afterward. Then she smiled, fake, tight-lipped, and added, "Why? You're not getting jealous on me, are you?" I shook my head and said no. Just curious. She went back to scrolling her phone, unaware that I'd just confirmed everything I needed. I didn't eat that day. My stomach turned every time I heard her voice. I started cataloging the audio files by date and detail. I gave them dry, clinical titles like Client Dinner 1, Hotel Room 2, Liam Call 4. I organized my heartbreak like a spreadsheet, rows of betrayal, columns of pain. But it wasn't until I found the voicemail that I realized how far she'd gone. It was buried in her old phone, the one she'd replaced and left in a drawer, thinking I'd never bother with it. But I did. I knew the lock code. She never changed it. The voicemail was from 3 months ago, time-stamped at 3:08 a.m. She hadn't saved the number, but the voice was unmistakable. "Hey Mar, just checking you got home okay. Tonight was perfect. I meant what I said. I don't care what he knows or doesn't. I want you to stay. You don't need his permission. You've outgrown him." Outgrown me. That word hit harder than any recording. Like I was some outdated shirt she kept in her closet out of guilt. Like I had become small. Disposable. I turned off the phone, sat there in silence, and realized the only person who hadn't accepted the end of our marriage was me. But that was about to change. There's a strange calm that settles in when you've finally accepted the truth. Not peace, nothing close to that, but a sort of numb clarity, like the moment after a crash when everything's still and the noise finally stops. That was me by Monday. I stopped wondering. I stopped hoping. I stopped pretending that Marcy was still the woman I married. And once I let go of that illusion, something in me shifted. I stopped crying. I stopped pacing the floor, and replaying conversations in my head. I started planning. She didn't notice. Of course she didn't. She thought I was still that harmless version of myself, the Nolan who believed the best in her, who'd rather stew in silence than stir up conflict. And I used that. I played the role. I made her breakfast 2 days in a row. I let her think I was trying again. She even kissed me before leaving for her Pilates class. The kind of kiss someone gives when they're distracted. Automatic. Loveless. But the truth was, I wasn't trying to fix anything. I was preparing the end. I took time off work, not that she asked. She probably assumed I was editing podcasts or napping, as usual. But really, I was combing through every file, every timestamp, every detail. I built a timeline, her lies, layered neatly against my recordings. I even synced her bank transactions with the hotel stays. She paid in cash, thinking it wouldn't leave a trail. But one night, she used our shared card for dinner. I matched the receipt to the audio. The waiter had said, "Will that be on the room, Ms. Rayner?" And she answered, "Yes. Same room as last time." Casual, confident. And that was it. I had everything. I didn't want revenge, not the messy, dramatic kind. No keying cars or public shaming. I wanted her to feel it the way I did. Quiet, sharp, and inescapable. So I started working on something else. I pulled clips from the recordings. Not graphic. Just enough. Her voice, his voice, their laughter. The things they said about me. I spliced it together into one single audio file. Nothing cruel. Just truth. Bare, undeniable, and hers. That Friday, she came home earlier than usual. I almost didn't recognize the look on her face. Warm, maybe even hopeful. She said she wanted to order Thai and stay in. I nodded. I said I'd pick the movie. I even poured her wine. And while she changed out of her work clothes, I set the file on the living room speaker. She came out, barefoot, holding her glass. The lights were low. The house was still. And then it started. Her voice filled the room. She froze. At first, I think she thought it was an accident, maybe some old recording playing from my laptop. But then she heard the context. The tone. The laughter. The names. Her expression changed. The glass slipped from her hand, shattered on the floor, red wine seeping into the rug. And she just stood there, pale as chalk, mouth slightly open. The file kept playing. 10 minutes of undeniable proof. She didn't blink. Didn't breathe. She was crumbling in real time. When it ended, I didn't say a word. And then she collapsed. Right there. Dropped to the floor like a puppet with its strings cut. I didn't rush to her. I just stood over her and finally asked, "How long were you planning to let me live in that lie?" She didn't answer. Because she couldn't. I didn't expect her to faint. I really didn't. Maybe freeze. Maybe cry. But collapse like that. Limp, breathless, her knees hitting the hardwood as if someone cut the strings inside her. It shook me. Not because I felt pity. Not anymore. It shook me because it confirmed everything. She wasn't some lost soul who made a mistake. She knew. She knew she'd built a castle out of lies, and that the foundation was cracking. And all I'd done was hold up a mirror. She came to within seconds, dazed, confused. Tried to speak, but all that came out was a pathetic, choked-up whisper of my name. Nolan. I didn't help her up. I sat down on the arm of the couch, arms crossed, and waited. Her eyes darted around the room like she was looking for a fire escape. There wasn't one. Not anymore. She finally asked, "How long have you known?" I answered honestly. Long enough to know this wasn't a mistake. It was a routine. She started crying. The kind of crying people do when they know it's too late. Not out of guilt, but fear. And then, of course, came the script. It didn't mean anything. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't know how to stop. I'd heard those lines in movies, in other people's stories, never thinking they'd one day be thrown at me like crumpled receipts. I didn't yell. Didn't ask for explanations. I simply asked one question. Were you ever going to tell me? Her face twisted. I was waiting for the right time. I smiled. The right time. I nodded toward the speaker. You've been saying that for 5 months. That silence afterward? That was the moment she knew she'd lost all leverage. The Marcy who held control over our marriage, over my heart, my sanity, was gone. What sat across from me now was a stranger wearing her skin. I stood up and handed her a manila folder I'd prepared earlier. Inside, printed transcripts of the recordings, the hotel booking receipts, the call logs, and her own voicemail. Everything in black and white. She didn't even open it. just stared at it like it was a bomb ticking in her hands. She whispered, "Are you going to ruin me?" And that's when I realized what she was truly scared of. Not losing me, not breaking my trust, but consequences, exposure, reputation. I told her I wasn't interested in ruining anyone. "You already did that all by yourself," I said. "All I did was press record." She asked where we go from here. I told her it was simple. "You leave. I stay. For now." She blinked, confused. "You're kicking me out." I nodded. "I need the space. And you clearly needed yours months ago. You just didn't have the guts to leave." She didn't argue. Not loudly, anyway. Just sat there in silence while the truth settled like dust around her. I walked to the bedroom and started packing her suitcase. She followed, still crying, still muttering things I didn't bother decoding. When I handed her the suitcase, she reached for my hand. I stepped back. "You didn't just cheat on me, Marcy," I said. "You erased me." She left 20 minutes later. No dramatic exit. No slamming doors. Just the hollow click of her heels down the hallway. And once again, that same sound of keys hitting the counter. Only this time, they weren't coming home. The apartment felt like a crime scene once she was gone. Everything was still in its place, but nothing felt right. Her slippers by the door, her half-used skincare in the bathroom, her stupid mug that said "Boss Babe" on the shelf. All of it looked like leftover evidence. I didn't touch anything. I just walked around in circles for hours, like my body didn't know what to do without its pain. That night, I lay on the couch in total silence. No lights, no sound, no distractions. I thought I'd feel some rush of relief, like the weight was finally lifted. But what I felt instead was something colder, more detached. I realized that I wasn't mourning her. I was mourning who I used to be with her. The guy who believed we were a team. The man who thought effort meant something. The fool who never imagined she'd be slipping out of his bed just to crawl into someone else's. I started deleting her photos. Not out of anger. Just survival. Every image felt like a lie. That smile she gave me in Chicago under the skyline. She'd been texting him during that trip. The picture of us at my sister's wedding. She left early that night. I thought she had a migraine. Turns out, she had dinner with Liam. It was all there in the timeline I built, perfectly aligned with her alibis. But as much as I wanted to purge her completely, there was one folder I couldn't delete. The recordings. I should have wiped them, burned them, erased the entire saga. But I didn't. I kept listening. Not out of obsession, but because each playthrough reminded me I wasn't crazy. That the gaslighting, the emotional neglect, the subtle digs, they were real. Documented. Proof that I didn't just imagine the distance. It had names. Voices. Hotel room doors. 3 days passed without a word from her. I thought she might try to come back, or at least reach out, but nothing. Just silence. Which told me everything. She wasn't fighting for me because she was never planning to. But then, on the 4th day, I got a knock on the door. Not her. Her sister. Rachel stood there, holding a tote bag and wearing the look of someone who just walked into a war zone barefoot. I let her in without a word. She sat on the edge of the couch, looked around at the stillness, and finally said, "She told me what happened. At least her version." I raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. She continued, "I just need to ask, is it true? Everything? The recordings?" I handed her a flash drive. She didn't want it. I insisted. "Don't take her word. Take hers," I said, straight from her own mouth. Rachel didn't even try to defend her. She just nodded and whispered. I knew something was off. I just didn't want to believe it. Then she told me something I wasn't ready for. She didn't just cheat on you, Nolan. She told Liam she was going to move in with him. That she was done with the quiet life here. She called you. Emotionally safe, but not exciting. It didn't sting. I was past the part where her insults mattered. But hearing how easily she discarded everything we built, that did something to me. Rachel stood up and added, "For what it's worth, you didn't deserve this. You were always too good to her." I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe I wasn't just a fool who saw the red flags and called them roses. But in that moment, I just felt exhausted. Before she left, Rachel paused in the doorway. "If she tries to come back, don't let her manipulate you. She's already spinning a story where you were the reason she strayed." I smiled bitterly. She can rewrite the ending all she wants. I have the entire recording. The following week passed in slow, heavy silence. No calls. No texts. No desperate knocks at the door. For someone who once said I was her whole world, Marcy vanished like I was nothing more than a name on a lease. But that's what happens when the mask slips. They don't just run from you. They run from the guilt, too. I kept expecting her to try to fix the narrative, to claw her way back in, to gaslight me into doubting my own ears. But nothing came. And that scared me more than a confrontation ever could. Until Thursday afternoon. That's when the email landed in my inbox. Subject line: I'm sorry, Nolan. Please read. My hands hesitated over the mouse for a full minute. I wasn't sure I wanted to see what excuses she'd found in the days since the truth hit her like a brick. I braced myself and clicked. It was long. Pathetically long. One of those sprawling apologies that read more like a confession riddled with justifications. She admitted to emotional confusion, said Liam had been persistent, that she had felt lost in her identity as a wife, that she needed to feel wanted again. All of it written like a sad, corporate press release, carefully worded to shift blame without sounding like she was shifting blame. She never used the word affair, never called it cheating, just emotional dependency that escalated. She ended it by saying, I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know I never stopped loving you. That line, it almost made me laugh. Because what kind of love survives a 5-month lie, laughter at my expense, hotel room moans, and a plan to move in with someone else while pretending to make dinner plans with me? I didn't reply. I didn't have to. She broke her silence a day later in the worst way possible, by telling people her version first. It started with a message from one of our mutual friends, Aaron. Hey man, I'm hearing some stuff. I don't know what's true, but Marcy said you snapped, started spying on her, and overreacted to some friendly conversations with a colleague? I froze. She was rewriting history. She was trying to make me the villain. I called Aaron immediately. I told him I wasn't going to defend myself with words. I asked for 10 minutes of his time. He agreed. When he arrived, I played the audio. Not all of it. Just enough. Enough to make him sit back in stunned silence, mouth slightly open, shaking his head. Jesus, he muttered. She said this wasn't even physical. I raised an eyebrow. That was before the hotel room segment. He didn't need more. He stood, patted my shoulder, and said, whatever you do next, you've got people who believe you. Word spread fast after that. Rachel must have confirmed it too, because by the weekend, people started texting me to apologize for believing her first. But here's the thing. It wasn't about reputation. It was about closure. Because she finally texted me again. This time, just 2 words, can we talk? I stared at the message. I thought about everything. The lies, the laughter behind my back, the hotel, the recordings, the silence, the rewriting, the collapse. And then I typed 3 words. I already did. I hit send, blocked her number, and for the first time in months, I breathed like a man who wasn't being haunted anymore. 2 months have passed since I sent that final message. Marcy never replied. Or maybe she did, but I wouldn't know. I blocked her everywhere. The apartment feels different now. Not emptier, just honest. I rearranged the living room. Replaced the rug she stained with wine. Threw out that awful mug. I even painted the bedroom a warm shade of green, just because I could. Every corner of this place used to whisper her name. Now it breathes mine. I'd be lying if I said I don't think about her. I do, but not with longing. More like how you remember a storm. Chaotic, loud, and something you're glad to have survived. The recordings are gone now. I deleted them last week. Every file, every folder, every whispered betrayal. Keeping them had served its purpose. I wasn't holding on to them for revenge. I was holding on to them because part of me still needed to be sure I wasn't crazy. And once I believed that, I let it all go. It's strange, isn't it? How someone can try so hard to break you. Yet in the process, they accidentally rebuild you. Stronger, sharper, quieter, maybe, but not weaker. I started running again. Joined a local studio that hosts late-night film screenings. I've made a couple of friends. Real ones. The kind who don't smile through their teeth. And then, last Saturday, I met someone. No expectations, no pressure. Just 2 people talking about movies after a midnight showing of a noir film we both found boring. Her name's Elise. She's nothing like Marcy. Not in appearance. Not in energy. She listens, really listens. And when she laughs, it isn't laced with sarcasm or superiority. I don't know where it's going. Maybe nowhere. But it feels real. That's enough for now. So if you've made it this far, thank you for listening to the unraveling of a man who once confused silence with strength. I'm not broken. I'm not bitter. I'm just awake. And sometimes, That's the best kind of ending. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. If you've ever experienced betrayal or rebuilt your life after one, share a fascinating moment from history that gave you strength. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.